I was going to say, here we are for a bit of a post-mortem, but in actual fact, the plane isn't going to die. I've just removed the spinner, 7mm Allen key for that one. Had to dig out the mud out of the end of it first, because this thing went nose first into the ground at a high rate of speed. Looking at my prop, you can see that the motor mount has been knocked loose or something. So we're getting in there to have a look at that. We've got 2 Phillips head screws on each side that come out, plus we have to get this motor mount off. And where's my little can? Okay, always a good idea to just plunk your hardware into a can or something like that, so you don't lose it. So we pop off the propeller, and we see what we got here. Okay. I think that plastic that it's mounted to is just a little bit loose. Found that my neat little glue job to hold the end held really well. The foam broke off, but the glue stayed. And it's definitely not straight, and I think it was straight before. Looks as solid can be. We've got a plastic bit in here that the motor mounts to. Just try and get stuff out of the way for you. And that looks as solid can be, but the motor is crooked. Just looking at this little bit down here, you can perhaps see that when I move that, that's coming loose a little bit. So that's all it is. I mean, it's next to nothing. So we want to get some glue in there and then put a clamp to get this out. Oftentimes they will put a prop on with a bit of an angle like that, in that oftentimes when you spin up the engine it pulls to the left, and so this is going a little bit to the right and a little bit down. And the little bit to the right helps counteract that torque that when the engine fires up. And the little bit down is when you're up in the air and you increase throttle. If it's pulling down a little bit, it helps it to maintain the trim better. I'd say there's certainly nothing wrong with the motor. We've got a plywood floor in here, right behind that plastic thing. So it's kind of hard. You can't just simply pull that out straight. You can't really lift it up. So this floor would have to come out before you get that out. This floor is into slots in the side, I would expect. So you see how this fuselage is in 2 halves, which I've improved upon here. So when they put this together, they put the plywood into one side and put the other side on and stick it together. So what I'm going to do is I'll use a hypodermic needle, and I'll put some Gorilla Glue down in on the back side of each of those. Certainly it can't pull itself away, so that's secure. So the only thing will be if it does another nosedive, that will be affected. Okay, so we've got to glue that. We've got to glue this bit up here, and it looks like it's solid back through here. So we might make use, it's to about here where the where it's separated in the middle. So we got. Oh yeah, we're going to have to redo the tail. These look okay, so we need to do the rudder. So it's broken the top part of the hinge there, broken down to about here. Add it. I might straighten out a gear a little bit. Just from heavy landings, they've sprung out just a tiny bit. Not too much. Pretty straight. Okay, well I think that's all that we have to do. A little bit of glue there. And boy, these things are built rugged, no question about it. Okay, next thing to do here, well first off I just put a little bit of weight here because this thing is losing weight in the nose and wants to tip backwards. But anyway, what we want to do is organize everything to where you can put all the glue in and then clamp it up. So I've worked out that we got these two plastic bits there, and this clamp will work fine to clamp across there. I mainly need to clamp this one side going in this way. Just have a very thin bit there, but I'm going to put this up here like so, and then use this clamp along with the piece of wood up here to clamp this way. Tail will do separately, so we'll not worry about that just yet. Just put a block behind the wheel so I don't roll it off the table. Okay, so what we've got to work with is it's a hypodermic needle, but it doesn't have the stick pin on the end of it. You know, it's just a tube on the end. I'm not sure where I got these things, but ideal for applying glue into tiny little places. So I'm going to use that to insert the glue in there. Looks like I can pull the plastic out by pushing on the plastic a little bit towards the inside. I can pull it out a little bit to where I can get the needle into the side as well. Both sides are loose a little bit, but mainly this one. Okay, so get a Gorilla Glue. So for a job like this, I like to use the old traditional Gorilla Glue. It tends to expand and foam up a little bit, and it can create a mess when it foams up. It also fills in gaps, and the mess that it creates can be cleaned up. So I'm more interested in the structural integrity than I am. As with most good glues, the lids tend to get stuck on them. And so give it a little persuasion to get it open. And we're opening it right up because I'm going to use the hypodermic to job to get the glue in there. I've sprayed it with a spray just sort of on the outside. It's normally you put a water on one side and one surface. But it's kind of hard. Okay. Our Gorilla Glue is not sucking up the needle. I don't know if it's because it's old or because it's a very tiny needle or whether the needle is plugged. Okay, I've got a vacuum applied by yanking on this thing, just trying to get some of it up with the needle. It's not cooperating too well. So much a brilliant idea. Let's see if we can get some in there anyway. We will use it as an applicator instead of how we intended to do it. In there anyway. Okay, I'm going to call that good for that part of it. Greaseless paper is good for where you don't want things to get stuck. And put this here. Clamp's going to go in there. We'll get the inside part of it situated first. Get our wood in place, and then snug her up. Now something like this, when you clamp it, it's quite likely that it'll put a permanent set on this foam, especially if you clamp it very tight. Same way that foam can dent, well, the same type of thing happens when you clamp it. But that right there is a place that is covered up. You don't see it, and at least it'll be nice and even. Okay, so that then brings us to the middle bit up here. And so I'll continue to use this needle as an applicator. Okay, so I'm just pulling it apart a bit. Okay, that's not working too well. Let's go ahead and get more serious. So, I'm going to resign myself to the fact that we're going to mess up this lip at the top. It'll end up getting repainted. I'm running a bead of glue down the seam. And we will be coaxing that in. Right, a little thin piece of plastic. But, let's see what we can do with what we got. Okay, the approach of this is this tape will also function as a bit of a clamp. So I'm pulling it snug, I'm pulling it across tight. Okay, so I'm pulling it across tight, and I want this tape to help that glue to force itself down into that crack. So I've smeared the glue on there, I've worked it back and forth to try and get it worked into the crack. Masking tape has to always be so difficult. Get it stuck well on one side, pulling really snug. Get it stuck down on the other side. And in this area we want it totally stuck in there. And hopefully as that stuff expands, it pushes into the join. Okay, so this is clamping. That's all getting healed up and forcing the glue down inside. My next task is then this rudder. So you can see it's bent over a little bit that way. As I... That's not a crack. I was thinking there was a crack here, but that's just one of the marks from where they push the thing out. So it went that way, so if there was cracks it would be on this side. I'm not seeing any. We've got a bit of a permanent bend in it. So this one, what I'm going to do, we're going to cut off the rudder. I'll be putting new hinges in there. And to try and straighten it out, what we'll do is we'll use the clear Gorilla Glue and just smear a bit on both sides, put greaseless paper on there, and then just clamp it straight and hope that it holds it straight. A little bit difficult for you to see, but as I wiggle this back and forth, we can see that the top of that hinge has come loose. Okay. So we'll just cut it right off and we will put new hinges in there. Okay, so here's our rudder. It's pretty straight, but it does have a little bit of a bend to it, you know, and I like to have things spot on. So I've got one piece of wood here which is very stout, solid, and very, very straight. I've got another thinner piece that will conform to whatever it has to. So what we're going to do is let the rudder be the meat in the sandwich. We'll have a piece of wood on both sides. We're going to clamp it here in the middle with the rudder inside. We will smear a bit of clear Gorilla Glue on there. And we will put some greaseless paper over it, and then we'll clamp it. We'll let it cure. I'll be putting a little bit of a spray of water. Yeah, I'm just thinking through this. Probably put the spray of water on the greaseless paper, so they can have it glued directly onto the rudder surface. Smear it around a bit. Spray the water onto the greaseless paper. Put it on there. Put this on there. And we will clamp it, and that should give us a really nice, super straight rudder. It gives us everything that we need. When you're clamping it, you want to make sure that it still has a gap here, so that you know it's clamping against the foam and just not against the wood itself. And other than that, there's not too much that could go wrong. Famous last words. But yeah, I'm going to be pleased with that, I think. Okay, we're ready to go with the rudder. But before we do that, let's go ahead and fix the little thing here. This is just my little fail-safe device to keep the hatch cover from flying off when we're going in the air. So what I'm going to do is spray one side. Make sure our sprayer is working here. A light spray onto one side. Apply the glue to the other side. Okay, apply it sparingly to the other side. For this it doesn't need an awful lot. So just got a tiny bit of glue on there. Put it back where it was. Normally I would wiggle it around a bit, but because we have all the bumps from where it was, it's kind of hard to do that. Okay, and then I'm going to use tape to more or less clamp it in place. Clamping directly onto foam is a bit problematic, and it does dent so easy. I'll put that there like that. And make sure we get this down all the way. Just a little bit of snugness there. Okay, and then I'm going to wrap it around here, just a bit snug. Across there. And that's not quite right. I'm looking at it and it's not sitting there quite solid or quite square. I'm redoing that one, and now I'll redo this one. Okay, I'm looking at that now, just looking at the join in there to make sure it's sitting square and flat and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that one's all set. Done there. I will not be using this glue for the rudder. Instead, we will be using the clear Gorilla Glue. Okay, so I'm kind of a Gorilla Glue fan, I guess. Okay, my fingers are pretty clean, so I'm going to be doing some smearing. And I'm also going to want this to just have a bit of moisture on it, so I sprayed the greaseless paper. I'm going to just give it a bit of glue. Looking at it, it looks to me like the main bend is right about here in the middle. So from there to there is the area that I really want to do something with. Okay, so I just got that glue on there, and now I'm just smearing it around. It's good to bend it a little bit back in case there are some minute cracks that you can't see, to try and work the glue into the cracks. The beauty of this clear stuff is that that is just going to make a new surface on there. And it'll be totally clear, and it doesn't foam up or anything like that. So this is great for this sort of application. Okay, I'm going to wipe off my fingers. Okay, that's pretty good. It feels pretty good. I'll fold that over. I've got the moisture on the paper to help the stuff cure. Make sure that we've got it flat on there. Any sort of wrinkles that are in there are going to show up as wrinkles. And I can see already I got a little bit of dirt in there that I didn't want. That's what happens when your man cave is also a garage and you do woodwork and all kinds of other stuff. Okay. Okay, so I got that pretty smooth there. Pretty smooth here. Okay. And we want one of these on one side, and we've got a control horn to miss. And one of these on the other side. Grab some clamps. I've done some gluing wood before. It's stuck together. Okay. Now that solid board is going to keep it absolutely straight. These clamps all along are going to keep it clamped in there. That's the bottom. That's the edge of it right there. So I got one clamp right up near the top, one in the middle, one farther down near the bottom. I might scoot them all down just a bit. Okay, so that should be good. I was transporting these wings with the side facing each other with this bit of, well, 2 layers of bubble wrap in between. But what I've discovered is that it's actually putting a little bit of a dent in here, so I started reversing it now with the pokey bits on the outside. Okay, so we got a little bit of a split in this one. Okay. Flaps look good, ailerons look good. That looks fine. So our only issue here is that in the end of this, there's a little bit of a longitudinal split along there. So about the only thing to do there would be some sort of wrap around it that would secure it a little bit more. But strength-wise, that's not really a big issue because it's just simply a pin in the plastic there that's holding it. It's not doing an awful lot anyway, so I'm not particularly worried about a failure to result from that. Having a look at our other wing. This is the one where we've done the hinges on it before. Okay, just have the on the flaps is just starting to come loose there on the edge a tiny bit. I think we'll keep an eye on that. If it was an aileron, I would definitely be cutting it off and redoing it straight away. With a flap, it's fastened on the bottom so that it can hinge away. So if we were to put hinges in there, they'd be going here at the bottom. But I think that's okay for the moment. And our repaired strut here is fine, or we did the repaired job. And up at the other end again, we got a longitudinal split next to where the pin goes through. So we might give some thought about some sort of fabric with glue on it to wrap around there and then re-drill it would be the best thing for that. Okay, I don't know how many of you were around back in the good old days when we used to cover our planes with silk. You had silk span and you had silk. But I've got this silk here that's probably 40 years old, something like that. And I reckon I can make a little bandage out of some of this and use some of that clear Gorilla Glue and wrap it around the end of that, what you call it? Yeah, I'm good at what you call it, it's on a strut. With some clear Gorilla Glue on there, and that is going to be like magic. This stuff is really strong, which is why we used it back in the good old days. Just since then we came up with all of the fancy shiny plastic stuff, which is also pretty strong, pretty good. Bit of a question as to how much to wrap around it, but anyway, we'll give it a try and see how we go. And just use a little block of wood to prop this one up. We can get at it. I want to sand that a little bit to give something for the glue to grip onto. Okay, so we're just sanding it here a little bit on the end. Glue-wise likes to have this something that microscopically it can get into little cracks and crevices, and the greater the surface area due to all those little cracks and crevices, the better it's going to grip. Looking for a dull finish on there. That looks reasonably okay. Mopping it up with that just to keep it up in the air. Got my piece of silk over there. Okay, so swipe a little bit of this stuff. Okay, so we got some greaseless paper to wrap around there. Okay, we've got our silk. Okay, and our clear Gorilla Glue. Okay, I'm going to spray the water on the silk. Dab of Gorilla Glue on there, and rub it around on the sides. Take off the fingers. Get some of the greaseless paper. Wrap that around there. Finish it off with some tape. Okay, so now I'm going to work on this one. Roughen up the plastic a bit. Okay, my piece of silk is there. And spray it with a bit of water. Dab of glue on here. Okay, roll that all around. Take my silk and round it around there. Looking good. Wipe off the fingers. Grab my bit of greaseless paper along with a piece of tape. Okay, let the greaseless paper go around it. Try to have it nice and snug, hopefully without wrinkles. Not that this is a terribly critical sort of thing that we're doing here, but good to try and practice the techniques. Okay. Okay, so that's going to do a great job on those struts. Okay, so we got our two struts gluing with silk and clear Gorilla Glue. We've got our tail, our rudder, which is clamped and gluing up. And you'll find with this, if there was little tiny cracks in there, the glue would be pressing those cracks to glue it together. But this is also going to make a hard surface of that glue on the outside of each side of the tail surface. Now it's going to take quite a while because of the greaseless paper on there and all of that for the secure, but we'll let it cure overnight, and then tomorrow, or maybe the next day, something like that, we'll take the clamps off and we'll let it I say air dry, but curing with the moisture that's in the air before another day or so before we actually use it, because it's actually going to harden up significantly more over time. These are the struts that we use, the silk along with the clear Gorilla Glue, and then wrapped it with greaseless paper and then the masking tape around that. And that's beautiful. Yeah, no problem there at all. So we'll re-drill the hole through there, and that's going to be nice and strong. We'll also paint it up so it's nice and white. So it's all looking good. These are just the tiniest bit tacky, so I'm going to let those cure a little bit more out in the air before we do any painting or drilling on them. Well, this is now a little over 24 hours from when we did all the gluing, so let's see how it went. Greaseless paper just peels off. It's all very solid, it's not moving anywhere. Still seems awfully crooked compared to the plane. I can only assume that that's how it was. So we mounted that way, looking at the back of it. If anything, this side that we clamped over here is pushed in a little bit more than the other side, which would tend to bring it back. Okay, now for the bit along the top, where this is over paint or stickers, you have to be rather careful, especially with paint. It's real easy for it to come off. In this particular case, we've only got some stickers here that we're on top of. Here we got paint, which is coming off. That's where the glue was, where it's coming off. It'll be easily touched up. Okay, this is the bit that goes over the stickers. I don't think that'll be a problem. That's all fine. A little bit more of the black paint coming off. Okay, so you can see we got a little bit of the black paint that came off. That's where I'd smeared the glue onto it. So obviously the glue liked very much what it was stuck to, as it did this bit of tape here. So that we will end up painting over it, but we'll sand off the bulk of that. It's not pulling off readily. Marring the finish a little bit there on the foam. It's always a challenge with masking tape to get a tape that's going to really stick well enough, but not so well that it's going to damage what it's stuck to when you pull it off. I don't know if that's my technique for pulling off the tape or whether the styrofoam is actually different. It's a good test here. Actually, pulling on an angle like that, it's left the finish much better than where over here where he's pulling it more up. So you can learn from my experience on that one. Okay, very little of the stuff that has come out. Yeah, well glued together. That's nice and solid. So what we're going to do is we will sand this bit here. I'll paint the entire top of it and down, including the black here. And I think that's going to look fine. Okay, so that's the plane and its bits. Now for the rudder. Have a look at how that one is. Okay, here's our clamp together bits. Now we take off our clamps. And of course the wood comes off very easily. And then let's see what we've got here. Pulling off nicely. Okay, so that's a very, very nice finish. It's very straight and quite rigid. So we've got that little film of glue that's on both sides there, and that's helping to hold that thing straight. So quite pleased with that. We'll clean up this little bit of glue that went over the edge onto the outside of it, and we'll be putting some hinges in here to fasten it on with. Well, having gotten the tape off, we've taken some 240 grit sandpaper and just sanded lightly on the seam there. All that sanded down pretty good. You'll note that when you sand on the foam, in places of the foam where it's a little bit coarse, it will tend to pick up anything. You know, like say where you've sanded on the black and you've got some color on the sandpaper, that's going to spread that around a bit. So any place you can sand, you can pretty well plan on having to paint afterwards. Okay, well, we'll use some white paint and some black paint and get that fixed up nicely. Well, we're now ready to get the hinges into the tail. So what we've done is we're going to be using a CA hinge, which is simply sort of a woven mat sort of material that I'm not sure what they have on, some sort of plastic or whatever, but it's flexible. So you just cut a slot, slide this in with some glue, and goes into both pieces. So we've marked our positions, and with this we'll be cutting the slot just a little bit wider than the hinge, so make sure it can get in there and fit properly. So we've marked a spot there, we've marked a spot here, and marked a spot there. We made sure that when we were doing this that we had one hinge very close to the control horn and the other two split apart a ways. So the marks are on both parts and they line up. So the first thing we have to do is cut the slots in there. Now in cutting the slots, typically I start out with a normal blade on an X-Acto knife. I've got the tape on there to mark the depth to get it down about halfway on the hinge. And after I've done the preliminary cut with that, then I will follow it up with a square bladed hobby knife. Okay, and again I've got the depth marked on there for half of the depth of the hinge. Okay, so we can see quite clearly where the middle of it is, so that's good, and we want to sight straight down so that we're cutting straight into the material. And fortunately, with a plane of this size, we're talking about pretty fat sort of control surfaces to work with, so it's pretty easy. So just a little bit of saw blade sort of action. Okay, that's got that one pretty good. Follow it up with a square blade. Okay, and get the next one. So we can see that the hinges are just going to slide in there nicely. And we will line them up with the things. So that's going to be how they go. No problem there. That looks good. Trial fit is always a good idea when you're putting things together to make sure they're going to go well. Okay, now for the trickier bit. It's just tricky in terms of getting position. To get this one. Okay, now we have to decide what kind of glue we're going to use. We have three choices of glue that we might want to use. We got the Bob Smith Industries Instacure. Actually, no, that's not the one. That's the normal CA one. Foam Cure, that's the one. Okay, so three types of glue that we could use. One is this Bob Smith Industries Foam Cure. Normally this would get used where you can have the air in contact with it, but it does work for this sort of thing. We got the Gorilla Glue, which will be a water cure that we could put on there. And we've got the CA that is compatible with foam. So, eeny, miny, miny, mo. Let's go ahead and try this stuff. This was recommended to me when I bought it by the outfit that by Hobby House, and the fellow said that he uses it all the time. I was a bit dubious, but anyway, I'm going to try it just so that I can say that I've tried it. And you get the benefit of finding out whether or not my rudder falls off. Okay, I'm just spreading it out, not all the way up, but in an area where it's going to get the full width of it. And then what I want to do is work it around a bit in there. Okay, confirming that it's kind of both sides. This stuff, you can let it dry for a bit and then have it become like a contact adhesive. I'm just going to put a little bit extra on there just to make sure we got plenty. So I'm just giving it a little bit of time with the air so it's got whatever it needs to get started. But then we'll put it in there. And we want to line it up with our marks on the side so that it's going to be even with the other bit. Okay, that looks reasonably okay. Okay, now the next one. There's really no right or wrong as to which side you do first. And I'm sure there's a something other than a finger that would work for spreading the glue around, but I'm an old finger guy. I'm working the glue up and down the area where I've cut into it as well, just simply because whatever part is not glued to the hinge, we want the foam glued back together where we've cut it. And the lucky last. I'm just going to put a little bit extra on there just to make sure we got plenty. So I'm just giving it a little bit of time with the air so it's got whatever it needs to get started. But then we'll put it in there. And we want to line it up with our marks on the side so that it's going to be even with the other bit. Okay, that looks reasonably okay. Okay, now the next one. There's really no right or wrong as to which side you do first. So we've got our hinges in place where they belong, and we are going to now fit these slots into those slots. Okay, so we see that that works. So we apply glue to each of them. Okay, a bit of magic finger work. Okay, let's see if we can get these guys into the right spots. want to make sure that we've got good movement side to side. They're reasonably close. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, what I'm going to then do is take a little bit of a piece of cardstock. Okay, business cards can come in handy. And I'm just taking this and I'm just using it to get rid of any excess glue that might be on the outside of the hinge. That should do it. Now, just for a little bit of insurance, I want to make sure the thing doesn't get moved, either somebody bumping into it or gravity pulling it down. And with that having good movement, I just want to hold it there. And likewise on the sides. Whack a bit of tape on here. Okay, that just ensures that it stays put where we're wanting it. Okay, with that, I think we're all good. Well, this is our little spray booth. Actually an airplane box that's been cut apart. I've sprayed a couple coats of acrylic white on there. Just got a little bit of a line going down the middle, so I might give a little bit more. Also, the surface of it is a bit rough. Not too bad. I'd say it's rougher than what the rest of the plane is, so I'll probably sand it and spray it again. For spraying it, I'm of course just using a normal compressor and a proper gravity-fed spray gun. So anyway, maybe one day I'll do a video on spray painting, but for now you can go to others and get hooked back on the hook. Yeah, maybe one day I'll do a video on spray painting, but at the moment you can see that basically it's coming together very well. This is the acrylic paint that I used, so just ordinary acrylic paint like you can get at the shops and whatever. And I've mixed it with a fair bit of water. Kind of hard to see that. Yeah, regarding the consistency, you know, it's pretty watery. Okay, so it's certainly not going to cover real well with just a single coat, but you want it to flow well, and you have to get it through the gun. So that's what I've done. Well, time for the unveiling. So we've done our painting, and now we want to pull off the tape. And we actually still have the black to go. Okay, so now I want to tape up these bits. These ones I think. Okay, for painting, again I'm just using a simple acrylic black, a very simple sort of paintbrush that has reasonably soft bristles. Got a little piece of plastic that I'm going to use as a palette. I got some water in here. Okay, so we're going to be painting the black up here. For that, I'm just going to use a simple black acrylic paint. Nothing special. I've got a little bit of water in the container there, and I've got just a bit of plastic that I'm going to use as a palette. So we put ourselves a little bit of black paint onto the plastic, get some water in our brush, and we just work it into the paint a little bit. We just want to get a bit of the black paint in the consistency that we want. Yeah, I think that's good enough there. And then we're just going to brush her on, trying to keep it reasonably even. And looks to me like that's going to do it. Okay. Well, back here I need to be a little bit more delicate with regard to painting within the lines. I just knew that there was a reason for coloring within the lines as a kid. It's getting a little bit thick or dry, and just add in a little bit of water. I want it to flow. Okay, also with painting, the position that you have the plane in makes all the difference in the world. So take the time to position it in such a way that you can get to a position that is comfortable to follow. Okay, I think that's going to be quite passable. It's looking quite nice in the front. Quite all right. Well, we got all of the tape off, and all of the paint job looks pretty good. But when I put the nose back together, it still was crooked and all of that, and thought, what's going on? So I've taken the motor off and have a look at the motor mount. That is really bent. So I'm going to take that off and straighten that out. And it's amazing, you know, that's just on a little plastic thing, and yet it bent the metal bracket. Well, as it turns out, this metal that is on the back of the motor is some sort of alloy, extremely lightweight. To me it feels lighter than aluminium, and extremely bendable. So I've taken it and I've sort of hammered it flat, and then I've also double checked and just bent it by holding one tab in the vise and just working at it to get it all straight. And I think we've got it all in good shape now. The screws were quite difficult to get out, and they appear to have had a bit of thread locker on. And given potential vibration and things like that, I'm going to also use thread locker as I put them back in. We've got some Loctite thread locker that we're going to use. And you just apply a little dab, tiny half of a drop or whatever. With these things, it's important to get the right blade on your screwdriver. You know, not just a Phillips, but the right number of head, and I don't even know which one's which. But you just have a feel of the screw with the screwdriver, and make sure there's no play back and forth. So the screwdriver, when you put the screw in there, you turn it back and forth, and this one, it just has a very tiny bit of movement that I can feel between the screwdriver and the thing. That's reasonably good. Okay, those are all nice and snug. Okay, so now we got these guys attach it. Plastic, we don't have to worry about a thread locker. The plastic naturally tends to do the same sort of thing. Okay, we've now got our motor installed, and let's just see how it looks with the cowl and the nose on there. Ah, much better, much better. As I look at it now, you can see that yeah, it's angled a very tiny bit to the right and a very tiny bit down, but before it was really obvious that it was way different. As I was going through checking things out, I wasn't too happy with the angle of the nose cone being angled down so much as compared to where the cowl came. So I've put a couple of washers under each of the bottom screws attaching the motor to the motor mount back there to bring that up pretty level, and so that's much more even now. Might be that it could actually go a little bit more to the right looking at that, but we're mighty close, and I think I'm more happy with that than where it was. Well, we've removed the tape from the rudder, confirmed that it's going nice and smoothly, pretty straight. So you got the control horn back on there. Can't remember which spot it was in. So we're taking an educated guess, and then we'll check it out as we power up the radio and check all of the controls. Okay. These ball type connectors, I don't know what it is with them. Oh, that's probably turning on the screw now instead of on the ball. Maybe with tightening the screw too far, it makes that ball too big. Well, since I wasn't too sure about how I had the rudder hooked up, what we're doing here now is we've got this set up to where the nose wheel is held off of the ground by our blocks and the pad there. I've got both wheels chalked with my improvised wheel chocks. And back here, yeah, I'm always one to improvise. So I've got a scale down there, and we're just going to measure how far this thing goes when you turn the rudder. And so it looks like we got about 15 mils on low rates.
Flight mode 2.
Looks like about 20 on medium rates.
Flight mode 3.
And something like 25 or so on high rates. Now I use a lot of Expo, so I'm not too worried about that. The book calls for a little bit less than that on all of them, but just, you know, my eyeball says that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. We'll give that a test fly, and we'll check out all of the other systems as we go as well. While we are showing you the not yet patented travel measurement system for controls, Might as well do the elevator while we're at it too. I'm on low rates there. I've got about 20. Keep in mind I'm beyond the trainer stage, so I want a little bit more things happening. Plus, like I say, I like to use a lot of expo. So we're about 20 on low rates.
Flight mode 2.
We're up to, looks like about 25 or so on medium rates.
Flight mode 3.
And we're right up there at about 10, 20, 30 on high rates. So, consistent between the elevator and the rudder with regard to where I'm at, relationship to the manual. The manual, by the way, says for the elevator 10 mils on low rates and 16 mils on high rates. So I'm kind of right up there, but that's okay. Maybe that's why I got into strife trying to fly it upside down, huh? Well, we'll see when we get back up there again. And here she is at the club after her test flight, and flying great. All of that is absolutely wonderful. Really pleased with the outcome of the repair. Well, I'm RC Jim, and thank you again for watching this video. It's been quite an epic production. I don't know if you managed to watch the whole thing through, but I trust that at least you're able to find the bits that are really helpful to you in the projects that you have going. As you can see, the Ranger is back up in its rightful place, no longer on the workbench, and now on the flight line. And we're enjoying it very much, along with the other aircraft that we work with. So be sure and subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot more in the works. Got a lot of stuff that's coming up on electric motors and ESCs, and comparing electric with nitro, and a lot of projects like that that we're working on, along with the regular flight demonstrations from the Central Coast Model Aero Club. And I trust that all of them are helpful to you as you pursue this hobby that we all enjoy. Thank you, great flying, and keep it up.